All right, folks, the House has done their part when it comes to averting a government shutdown. Basically, all the Democrats and Republicans did was say, Democrats, please save our ass. And so more Democrats voted for this bill than Republicans. And so joining us right now is a Democratic leader, a House Minority Leader, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. So I got my alpha brother over here, Mustafa. We got Omega in the House, Michael Brown, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. I'm one of her constituents, Congressman Jeffries. She's a what you a Delta?
I'm gonna say don't do it.
Okay, you're a Delta, and what you Randy? You AK?
AKA.
All right, so we almost got the Divine Nine up in here, Congressman Jeffries.
Don't leave the leader out though.
I know that. I said here, Captain.
Yeah, Roland knows I'm bringing the crimson and cream to the scene.
Yeah. We know about crimson and cream. I keep getting y'all dressed like Deltas. I keep getting y'all confused. All right, let's get right to it. First of all, Speaker Mike Johnson, he needed your help for this bill.
Yeah, well, first of all, happy birthday, my brother. You are so appreciated. Your advocacy, your brilliance, your articulation of the issues, it's all incredible. And one, I wanted to make sure that this moment didn't pass without being able to let you know how much we all appreciate you and wish you a happy double nickel birthday.
Appreciate it.
You're absolutely right, Roland. From the beginning of this Congress, we've said, look, House Republicans aren't going to be able to govern on their own. It's a chaotic, dysfunctional, extreme situation going on the other side of the aisle. And we've made clear from the start of the Congress that we're willing to find common ground with our Republican colleagues whenever and wherever possible, arrive at bipartisan agreements in order to meet the needs of the American people, but at the same time, push back against their extremism whenever necessary. We were able to find common ground today to avoid a government shutdown and make sure we can be there for the American people.
This is stopgap. How long is it going to last?
So it's going to go to January 19th. There are two bifurcated dates. So there's one date in January 19th, and then the second date in February 2nd. But that should give us a sufficient amount of time in order to arrive at a full year spending agreement. Basically, you've got President Biden and the administration, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, House Democrats, who are already willing and able to do what's necessary to fund the government for the balance of the fiscal year. But the House Republicans are still out there on an island acting like we're going to allow them to break the agreement that they themselves made with respect to spending numbers in May. We're not going to let them break that agreement. We're not going to allow them to demand these extreme ransom notes. We're never going to pay it. And so it's time for them to just come to the table so we can do what's necessary for the American people.
I've been making that point I was in Virginia, had about 5 town halls with folks helping House Virginia Democrats take back the House there. My frat brother Don Scott will become the Speaker of the House in Virginia. And as we were talking to folks out there, and I've been dealing with people all on social media, people have been complaining, saying what Democrats haven't done, what Biden hasn't done. I had to remind folks, if the Republicans had their way, they literally would be cutting out 80% of benefits to women and children. They would be cutting out Pell Grants. So all the folks who say they're looking for help, whether you're college students, student debt relief, things along those lines, these are the folks who absolutely they want to take a sledgehammer to all of that.
That's absolutely right. In terms of funding the government at this particular point in time, we had to draw a line in the sand and say that we'll work with them on passing a continuing resolution, but there will absolutely be no cuts. They wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and support for women, infants, and children and nutritional assistance, cut Pell Grants, cut support for affordable housing across the board. And we said, no, not a single cut is acceptable to us. We held the line. Jasmine Crockett, others held the line, and as a result, we were able to pass a continuing resolution at the current fiscal year spending levels with not a single cut and not a single right-wing policy rider to do things like undermine diversity, equity, and inclusion, programs, which are designed just to make sure African Americans and others have a fair shot in America.
You see what the polls are saying when it comes to the re-election chances of President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris. There are a lot of people who are frustrated. They say the economy is not doing well. You see what a lot of African Americans, people saying, I might sit the election out. I've been really laying out that I think one of the fundamental problems for Democrats, for me, they are not properly articulating what has been accomplished. There are things that people are crediting Donald Trump with when he was there that Democrats actually got done. People talk about the First Step Act. That doesn't happen without you and the efforts that you and other Democrats did to get it through the House and improve it in the Senate. There are no PPP loans, also stimulus checks that he put his name on without House Democrats. So what are you saying to the White House? What are you saying to his campaign? What are you saying to other Democrats? How they must message so people understand what y'all have been doing compared to these MAGA Republicans?
It's a great point. And now that we're inside of a year, we really have to focus on drawing the contrast as to what we've been able to do for the American people, as you've laid out during the Trump years in terms of what were effectively Democratic initiatives that we compelled the administration to sign off on because we were in a divided government context to be able to get things done for our communities and people all across the country. And then in the last 2 years, when Democrats had complete control of the House and the Senate, led by President Biden, being able to do things like pass the American Rescue Plan, shots in arms, put money in pockets, kids back in school, reopen the economy, be there for Black businesses and entrepreneurs. And of course, more needs to be done, but continue to do the work like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which includes clean water in every single community, no more Flint, Michigans, no more Jackson, Mississippi's, pass gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years, make sure we're bringing domestic manufacturing jobs back home to the United States of America through the CHIPS and Science Act. And then, of course, something of particular importance to our community in the Inflation Reduction Act, driving down the high price of life-saving prescription drugs, giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices for the first time in its history, and dropping the price of insulin for millions of Americans, many people in our community, from thousands of dollars per year to $35 a month. Those are just the facts of the work that we have been doing, and those are just the highlights. And we have a vision to do more, to continue to put people over politics and to build upon those accomplishments. And Roland, we're not saying that those accomplishments need to be cited in order for us to say to our communities and our folks, reward us, but it is important that people understand what we've done for them to trust us, that we say what we mean and we mean what we say. We've done the work. We'll continue to do the work if you give us the opportunity to continue to govern.
Yeah, but also if Republicans are able to get control of, keep the House, take control of the Senate, we're in the White House, a lot of those things will be repealed. Republicans have already made clear that they want to get rid of the Medicare cap of $35 for insulin for folks. That's a lot of Black grandmothers and grandfathers and mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles who are now paying that $35. And so one of the things that I articulate to people that, to me, this ain't about a D or R, blue or red. It boils down to there are things that how Black people have benefited in the last several years because you've had Democrats in control of the House or the Senate and also the White House. You lose those things, it's a whole bunch of stuff that is going to go away.
That's exactly right. The stakes are high in terms of what's been done and what can be taken away if the extreme MAGA Republicans are able to be put back into power. And that's basically been their agenda from the beginning. Things like Social Security and Medicare are on the table, reproductive freedom on the table. We want to make sure that folks all across the country have the ability to select your representatives, your member of the Senate, to be able to effectively determine who the President of the United States is going to be moving forward. Even things like voting rights, which are basic and fundamental to our democracy, are at risk of being rolled back by the extremists. if we let them get back into power.
Last question for you, and that is, you're the minority leader, but we look at some legislative changes, what's happening on the state level, picking up a seat in Louisiana. It's going to put a seat in Alabama. You might see pickups in Georgia as well as in Florida. We see Republicans are trying to do in North Carolina, but if Democrats are successful in New York State, the rally is you may be in a position where Democrats take control of the House. Like I said, I spent time in Virginia, and one of the things that Democratic Minority Leader Don Scott said, he said, we needed to go to places, go into communities, not just rely on strategists and rely on television, and really be seating the ground talking to people. I've said consistently that if Democrats have any shot next year, they got to spend the first 6 months on what I call an education and enlightenment tour, as opposed to saying, hey, vote, vote, vote. It has to be an education piece to really get people to understand why they must turn out in order for you to become Speaker of the House.
It's a very good point, Roland, and you've been at the forefront in making sure that all of us are delivering the information in a way that educates and enlightens, as you've put it so eloquently. And I think that that's a model for us to adopt. I had the opportunity to congratulate Don Scott a few days ago, and it certainly was a big part of the historic effort that took place in the Commonwealth of Virginia last week, something for us to be able to build upon. And there are real opportunities. You mentioned Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia and Florida as possibilities. Some of the districts in New York, including in Long Island, which has a substantial population of color, New York 40% of color, 20% African American. The fate of the House of Representatives in many ways will turn on whether communities of color are invested in this election. And that's just not showing up in church the Sunday before the election, asking people to vote, but really laying the groundwork and developing an authentic relationship. I look forward to continuing to talk to you about how to best do that as we move forward.
Congressman Jeffries, always good to see you, my brother. Thank you so very much.
Happy birthday, my brother.
Yes, sir. Thanks a bunch.